Welcome everyone to the Leveraging Lending and Investments for Nonprofits and Communities. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I'm going to turn it over to Sean to just give us a few disclosures before we begin.
Thank you, Tessa. My name is Sean Futch, and I'm a leadership fellow here at the Philadelphia Fed. It's my privilege and pleasure on behalf of the Fed to have everyone here today for the informational session. And we're delighted to have you here with us to learn more about LINC. So thanks for tuning in. And before I hand things back over to Tessa to begin, I want to mention a few items. So first, we have a short disclaimer. So the views expressed here are those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent the views of the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia or the Federal Reserve System. Second, please rename yourself with your organization and use the chat function on your toolbar to ask any questions throughout the presentation today. And for those calling in, if you have any questions, you can send them in via email at phil.link@phil.frb.org. Again, that's phil.link@phil.frb.org. And lastly, please remain muted throughout today's session. So again, welcome. And without further ado, I'll hand it back over to Tessa.
All right, thank you, Sean. And again, we are delighted to have you all join us today for this information session. As we know, everyone is busy and is probably on a lot of virtual meetings. So LINC stands for Leveraging Lending and Investments for Nonprofits and Communities. And this is going to be a brief informational overview, and we will have plenty of time for any questions. So please do feel free to use the chat to send us any questions throughout the presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to do some introductions. My name is Tessa Lamel, and I'm a program manager in our Supervision, Regulation, and Credit Department. I'm joined today by my colleague, Samantha Porter. She's a community engagement advisor and outreach manager from our community development and regional outreach team. Together, Samantha and I administer the LINC program. Also, not on the call today are two additional team members, Micah Spector and Ellen Crane from our Community Reinvestment Act team. And they really are our two subject matter experts on all things CRA, which we'll talk a little bit about in the presentation. They will be helping us facilitate the training, which you'll hear about a little later in the presentation. And last but not least, you saw Sean, who is our Leadership Fellows Analyst, and he also helps us to support the program. So again, looking at the agenda, it's going to be a very high-level overview of the LINC program, and you will get a copy of all the slides and follow-up information in an email by end of day tomorrow. If for any reason you do not get the email, please contact us. Our information is on the Philadelphia Fed website under LINC, should be in the information for this registration, and it's also going to be at the end of the presentation as well. All right, so moving on to slide 4. So what is LINC? And I also want to mention, we have had a few technical difficulties today with technology. So hopefully if there's any glitches or any delays, that's, you will have a copy of everything. So just bear with us, as I'm sure you all are aware. Also, I should give another disclosure that I have a dog that only barks when I'm talking on a presentation. So if she does bark as well, I apologize in advance, because that's the only time that she ever barks is when I have to talk on a presentation. Okay, so what is LINC? LINC is a program that we developed here at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia to help strengthen nonprofit knowledge around the Community Reinvestment Act, and also to facilitate relationship building between the nonprofit community and other funders, such as community banks, larger banks, and philanthropy. Our main objective is to bring these two communities together to explore community development opportunities in the areas that you both serve, especially those in low and moderate income, distressed, and underserved communities. So a way that I like to describe LINC is we are like a friendly Shark Tank. Nonprofits who participate in the program get an opportunity to pitch to a room full of funders. So I'd also like to take a moment to say what LINC is not. So we are not a grant-making organization. And also for funders, I know we have a few funders who are joining us on the call, bankers. Um, as I know you would, you still should do your due diligence on any organizations that you decide to work with. So moving on to slide 5. I want to give you a little bit of the history about why we started LINC and what the program is. So we started LINC in 2018. Our first pilot was in Chester County. And then in 2019, we were in Lancaster in southern New Jersey. So historically, LINC has been a geographically focused program where we go to a certain area or a number of counties, and we really focus in on the banks and the nonprofits that operate in that local area. What we heard from our community bank partners specifically is that they were not always getting as many opportunities to meet with nonprofits as they would like. Similar probably to some of yourselves, smaller community banks don't always have as much time to be out and touching base with everyone that they would like to. So the LINC program provides an opportunity for everyone to meet each other in a quick fashion. Also, Samantha will go into more specifics about exactly how the program works, but the core of it is that we really saw the need to bring the nonprofit communities together with the banking community to look for potential resources and to facilitate that relationship building and communication and collaboration. In the larger Federal Reserve System, there is a larger initiative called Investment Connections that happens all around the country that is similar to LINC. So this program has seen success everywhere that it's went, and we are delighted to bring it back in 2021. Obviously, in 2020, with the challenges of the pandemic, we took a pause on LINC, so we are restarting it for this year. Moving on to slide 6. And again, any questions, feel free to send them in on the chat. The basis of the LINC program is the Community Reinvestment Act. So the Community Reinvestment Act encourages depository institutions, banks, to help meet the needs of communities in which they operate, specifically the low and moderate income neighborhoods. So giving nonprofits the opportunity to meet with lots of potential funders at one time is a great resource. And we've seen a lot of outcomes, which I'll talk about as well. One thing for the LINC program is that for nonprofits, we do require that the projects presented do meet the definition of the Community Reinvestment Act. So no matter if you have a lot of knowledge on the Community Reinvestment Act, or you're like, what is she talking about? I don't even know what the Community Reinvestment Act is. We will have a training next week that's going to go more in depth about CRA. And again, that is the basis of this program. So what I'd like to mention just briefly here is that support from banks doesn't always have to be a grant. It could be a loan, or it could be a service, such as having a bank employee serve on your board in providing financial expertise as well. So there's lots of options for where nonprofits and community banks and other funders can partner together. What we know is that nonprofit organizations are important partners in bank community development. Nonprofits understand the areas of the community and are on the front lines of meeting the needs through their own programs and services. So banks often partner with and support local nonprofits, as I'm sure many of you have relationships with banking partners as well. This is usually an essential part of their CRA strategy. So just to give a few highlights, in the past, we've seen all types of projects presented in LINCs, from loan pools, new market tax credits. We've seen requests for funding for Head Start programs, small business support, childcare, food insecurity, just to name a few. So again, these are topics that we would go much more in depth next week at our training. But just know that many of the projects presented, or many of the things that you're probably thinking about, would meet the definition of CRA in the program. And the funders who participate in the program know that we pre-screen your projects for eligibility under the Community Reinvestment Act. So what it does is the funders have an incentive to participate because they know, first of all, that the nonprofits have worked with us in learning about the Community Reinvestment Act. So it helps them achieve their goals around their CRA strategy. Moving on to slide 7. To give you an overview of our objectives, we really try to frame all that we do around these 3 objectives. So first, as I've mentioned, connection. We really want to facilitate that relationship building for opportunities with community banks in the 3rd district. And when I say 3rd district, that's most of Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, and Delaware is really the area that we cover as the Federal Reserve. But also what I would say around the connection piece is nonprofits who go through the program often also build additional relationships with each other. So as part of the program, you do get to hear what each other is presenting. And a lot of times you will find alignment and potential partnerships from those in your community who you may not have worked closely with in the past. So you also get to build, relationships with funders all at once, but also with each other as well. The capacity building. So we hope to give you knowledge around CRA that not only you can use in the LINC program, but also that you can use going forward as you approach other funders in your local market. In fact, one success story that we had in southern New Jersey was that a nonprofit who participated in the training was able to take what they learned around CRA and deepen their relationships with another bank. Excuse me, just one second. And was able to take their knowledge around CRA and deepen their relationships with their existing bank. So they were able to present to a room full of bankers and then after the event, talk to their local banker about what they've learned in CRA and how what their work aligns with CRA and able to get additional funding. So what you learn from going through the training, you can definitely apply in the future and going forward. And finally, our last objective is to build a community of practice. We really hope to create that network of stakeholders to share resources, best practices, and again, continue building relationships throughout our area and our local community. We really hope to continue as a resource for all of you. And of course, even if you decide not to participate in the LINC program, we are always available for any questions and happy to provide information as much as possible. So now I'm going to turn it over to Samantha, who's going to take us through some more specifics of the LINC program that's coming up. So over to you, Sam.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Tessa. As she mentioned, I'm Samantha Porter, and I'm the Community Engagement Advisor and Outreach Manager here at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. I'd like to now talk about 2 features that are unique to this relaunch of the LINC program. So if we could go on to slide 8. The first feature of this year's program is our focus on projects that will apply a racial equity lens to their work. And so one definition of racial equity that we'd like to share is the just and fair inclusion in an economy in which all can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential so that race can no longer predict life outcomes. So while the CRA and these projects focus on low to moderate income communities, we all know there's evidence that shows a fairly strong correlation between majority low to moderate income census tracts and majority minority census tracts. So that's the reason why we'd like to invite applicants to the program who really are excited to bring a racial equity lens to their work if they're not already. During our February 4th training, we'll offer a more in-depth perspective on how to think about or bring racial equity to the design of your program applications in keeping with CRA requirements as well. Slide number 9, please. The second feature of this year's launch is our focus on the greater Philadelphia area. This includes Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties. Now, for those of you who are partners outside of that particular focus area, don't despair. This is our first relaunch of LINC for this year, and so we hope to expand our geography to the next cohort of LINC later this year. So we do focus, as Tessa mentioned, on certain geographies, and this will be our focus for the beginning of 2021, but the program is something that we hope to continue to grow. Slide number 10, please. So what we've done is we've highlighted, just to build on some of Tessa's comments, what the engagement steps look like. And so these are the ways in which we would see nonprofits being engaged with the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia throughout their participation in the LINC program. So first, as we've mentioned, there's a training. It is a 90-minute training. Ours for this relaunch is scheduled for February 4th. More information about that will be shared in the follow-up materials and at the end of this presentation. This training will really provide you a window into CRA requirements and start to share information about racial equity and how to apply racial equity lens to projects that will be submitted. Second, through the application process, we hope to share additional resources that will help to build capacity. And so thinking about the design and tailoring projects to fit the Community Reinvestment Act, but also thinking about where there are opportunities to gain access to types of data or things that will strengthen applications as applicants move through the process. And then finally, up to 10 nonprofits will be invited to present their projects in our friendly Shark Tank, to use Tessa's term, to a panel of funders, including area community banks and others. Slide number 11, please. So our hope for what you'll gain from this program is that participants in LINC will first be able to establish those new relationships that Tessa mentioned, as well as strengthen existing ones. So if you already have an existing relationship with a community bank or other large bank, hopefully through this process, those relationships can be strengthened, as well as across nonprofits. We hope to also include foundations and other community development actors in the Philadelphia area, and so we're excited about that. We also seek to offer those resources that I mentioned that can create strong presentations and strong applications. And as I said, this may include information about how to access valuable data or a deeper understanding of racial equity, as well as the Community Reinvestment Act. And really, that's the focus. We hope that applicants can, at minimum, amplify their knowledge of the Community Reinvestment Act. Next slide, please. That'll be slide 12. So what are our next steps? We hope you will join us for our training session, From Concept to Action, Creating a Community Development Project that Aligns with the Community Reinvestment Act. That will take place on February 4th from 1 to 2:30. The registration link will be included in the chat. It also will be included in these materials that will come to you after the presentation. We would also appreciate if you would share this event with those in your network. We know for those of you who are able to join, there are many more nonprofits and others that might be appropriate funders or may be appropriate to participate in a variety of ways in LINC. And we hope that you'll share this information and the information about it, the training, specifically with other nonprofits in the Philadelphia area that you think would be a good fit for the program. And we encourage them to send a representative to attend the training. And as always, they can reach out to us via email. We will start accepting applications on February 5th, so right after the training, and the training is a prerequisite to apply. We will open up the application period, so we're looking forward to participation there. And finally, a recording of this session and the slides will be made available on our website. We have a brand new website at the Philadelphia Fed, which is a little bit more user-friendly, and you can simply search for LINC, L-I-N-C, or follow the hyperlinks that'll be provided in your follow-up materials to register for the February 4th training. And so with that, I want to thank you for your kind attention and open it up to any questions that you might have in the chat.
Thanks, Sam. And while we're waiting, again, on behalf of both Samantha and I just want to reiterate that we are excited to relaunch LINC in Philadelphia. Again, it's a very training that you'll learn a lot about CRA, and then, get an opportunity to meet a lot of funders at once and also build those relationships. And we're here to support you throughout the entire process. So I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any questions, but I want to make sure I give everyone a chance. If you do have any questions, Bond, could you flip to the next slide with our contact information? I think that's the last slide.
It looks like
Do you
two
wanna-
questions came in. A
Okay.
few questions came in, Tessa. So
Oh,
the
okay.
first
Sorry.
question
Go ahead.
is related to the funding range. So I'm assuming that's related to how large should people be thinking about, how large should the projects be from a monetary perspective?
Yes, so we've seen projects of all sizes come in. I will say that most of our projects that get funded are, I know a lot of times we think banks and we think millions of dollars, but most of the projects that get funded, I would say, are more like 50,000, 100,000. But we could always talk through what you're thinking about, because I don't want to turn anyone away, because there could be an opportunity where this could be funded by multiple funders. So there really is not a funding range that we put in there. We just ask that you make it realistic based on your expertise and based on your project. So for instance, if you are typically a nonprofit who works with food insecurity, and then you put in a project for like small business development that you've never done for millions of dollars, you'll probably get additional questions. I'm not saying it's a no, but just we really look to see, does it align with your mission and what you've currently done, as well. We try to look at it from the lens of the bank side as well. Is it something that they would be interested in funding, when we go through the projects? So there's no limit, there's no minimum, and we're happy to talk through whatever you're thinking about before you submit an application as well. And was there another question?
Yep. The next question is, do you have to have a bank partner already in place?
No, so that's really what the LINC program is all about. We know that nonprofits are busy on the front lines, serving needs in their communities. And bankers, especially our community bankers, sometimes they feel that the larger banks get approached more and they don't always get to hear about all these great opportunities. So you absolutely do not need to know anyone in the program at all. Our goal is really to bring these two communities together, to build relationships, get to know each other, and then of course result in some type of partnerships or fundings for the betterment of the community. Great question. Thank you.
The next question is, can you list who some of the funders already participating at the Friendly Shark Tank are?
Well, we actually have not confirmed the funders yet for this session, but I can tell you what we do is once we get the nonprofits, we look at where the nonprofits operate. So we want to make sure that we are matching up funders who actually are in your local marketplace. So in the past, we've had the program has been focused on community banks. We've always had great participation from our community bank partners. So I do expect that we will have a robust funding audience that attends this event as well. Just to give you a little bit of feedback from what we've heard so far, the bankers really appreciate this program. They look forward to attending the LINC session because they also get the opportunity to see, 10 projects at one time. So it's a very efficient way for them to use their time to really get to know the nonprofits in their local area. So while we don't have the funder list at this time, we would anticipate that we would have that after we go through the applications, which is the month of February and part of March. And as I've said, we've always had great response from the funding community to really come out and support this event as well. Thank you for the question.
Now we have two more questions from Rebuilding Together Philadelphia. So first, can it be a pre-existing program? And second, is it multi-year or 1 year?
Yes, and I should have specified project, program, that can be used interchangeably. So it doesn't have to be a new project. You don't have to invent a new project for the LINC program. So it can be an existing program, an existing project as well. And it can be multi-year. It's when you get through the training, it goes more in depth around the application process. But the application process would ask you to describe your project or program, and in that case, you can put multi-year. What we're really looking to do is to help nonprofits meet banks, and then from there, we hope you fall in love and do several projects forever and ever and ever. Honestly. So it can be, obviously, we're happy if there's one-time investment in partnership, but we're also extremely happy if there's ongoing relationships as well. Thank you.
Now we have a question from Amy G. What materials will be sent to us after this webinar?
Okay, great. So we will send you a copy of this presentation deck, and then we will also send you a link to register for the training. And again, this deck is just very high level overview, just to give you the concept of what the LINC program is. The training session goes, I'll give you a little preview of the training session since we have everyone here. The first part of the training session is CRA 101 that is conducted by Micah Spector. As I said, he is a CRA subject matter expert. He can answer just about anything. I've never hardly seen him not be able to answer a question on CRA. So he's excellent. So the first part of the training, you'll learn all about CRA. And again, this could be great for others in your organization. You're welcome to attend the training, even if you don't think right now is the right time for you to apply to the LINC program. It's still a great training that you can still learn about CRA in. So you'll get the presentation, the link to the CRA training, and you'll get a short follow-up survey evaluation on our presentation today. I think that's it. I don't think I missed anything.
Yep, I think you got it covered, Tessa. We have a question from Deborah Cost. Are organizations sponsored by a religious community considered?
Yes. So actually in Southern Jersey, we had several organizations that were associated with the religious communities. So the main thing that we have to evaluate is if your project or program meets the definition of CRA. That would be more specific, and we're happy to talk offline if you have something in mind. Or again, if you come to the training next week, which is a prerequisite to apply, we could talk more about that. But we have had organizations who are associated with religious organizations apply as well and be accepted. And I should add that, and be accepted as well.
Sounds good. And then we have one last question from Rebuilding Together Philadelphia. Where is the application form on your website? Can you please put the link in the chat? Okay, so I can include that before we close
so actually
out.
the application link would not be live until February the 5th. He'll put the training link in, but just to give you an overview of the application, we tried to make it a short application because we know everyone is busy. So the application is basically what you would fill out in there is you would tell us about your project. So it's a little bit about your organization, who you are, what you do, and then a short description of your project. And in this case, there will be a few other questions around the racial equity component. And again, if there's any questions around that, after you attend the training next week, Samantha and myself are always available to talk through and assist with that as well. Our goal is really to get to make sure you feel prepared to participate. And we also know that there is, some work involved. So we do want to be a resource to help make this as easy and smooth as possible for you. And again, so the application will be live on February 5th. If you go to the Philadelphia Fed website, there is a link page, and we will post all information there as well. Do we have any other questions, Sean?
No, that was the last one. So we can go ahead and close out.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Those were some great questions. I'm always so excited about the LINC program and getting to talk and getting to know each one of you. Normally, I should have said this, we would normally have this in person, so we would get to have an opportunity to meet each other. So do please reach out, because that is one thing in a virtual world that is a little challenging, is getting a chance to make those personal connections. So we do hope that you will join us for the training next week, February the 4th. And again, if you have any questions, there's our contact information. Please do not hesitate to reach out. So again, thank you for joining us today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.